The broom clattered to the floor as Amara stumbled backward, her eyes wide with terror. The old woman she had mocked just moments ago was no longer hunched over. She stood tall now, impossibly tall, and her eyes glowed like burning coals in the dim hallway of the office building. Amara's mouth opened to scream, but no sound came out. The woman raised one wrinkled finger and pointed it directly at Amara's chest. Then everything went dark. But let me tell you how it all began, 3 months earlier in the bustling city of Ibadan. Amara was 24 years old and worked as a cleaner at the Silverstone Tower, the tallest office building in the city. She had worked there for 2 years, and in those 2 years, she had become the most disliked person on the cleaning staff. Why? Because Amara had a tongue as sharp as broken glass and a heart that seemed to enjoy hurting others. Every morning, Amara would arrive at work with her head held high and her nose pointed to the sky. She wore her cleaning uniform, yes, but she walked as if she was better than everyone else. The other cleaners would greet her with polite good mornings, but Amara would only roll her eyes and look away. There was Folake, a kind woman in her 50s who had 7 children at home. Folake worked 2 jobs to feed her family, and sometimes she would fall asleep during lunch break because she was so tired. Amara would laugh at her and say loudly, "Look at Folake sleeping like a lazy goat. If you cannot work properly, go back to your village." The other cleaners would look down at their feet, embarrassed for Folake, but no one said anything. Amara was the supervisor's favorite because she worked fast and complained to him about everyone else. Then there was Choku, a young man who was saving money to go to university. Choku had a slight limp in his left leg from an accident when he was a child. Amara would mock him every single day. "Hurry up, Choku. Why do you walk like a broken bicycle? The floors will not clean themselves." She would laugh her cruel laugh, and Choku would bite his lip and say nothing. There was also Zainab, a quiet woman who wore a headscarf and prayed 5 times a day. Amara would purposely schedule Zainab to clean the 10th floor during prayer time, then report to the supervisor that Zainab was lazy and always disappearing. "She is always hiding somewhere," Amara would say with a fake concerned face. "I do not think she takes her job seriously." Week after week, month after month, Amara continued her cruel ways. She would steal people's lunches from the break room refrigerator and deny it. She would tell lies to the supervisor to get other cleaners in trouble. She would trip people when they walked past carrying heavy buckets of water. And she would laugh and laugh and laugh. The other cleaners tried to be patient. "God will deal with her," Folake would say quietly. But inside, they all wished something would make Amara understand how much pain she caused. One Wednesday morning in October, something changed. A new cleaner started working at Silverstone Tower. Her name was Grandmother Ife, though she asked everyone to simply call her Ife. She was very old, perhaps 70 or 80 years, with skin like wrinkled leather and eyes that seemed to look right through you. She was small and bent over, and she walked with a wooden cane that made a tap-tap-tap sound on the floor. The supervisor introduced Ife to the team during the morning meeting. "This is Ife. She will be working on the lower floors. Please make her feel welcome." Amara looked at the old woman and smirked. Another weak person to push around, she thought. After the meeting, Amara walked up to Ife and looked her up and down. "Old woman, can you even hold a mop? You look like you should be home waiting to die, not cleaning floors." The other cleaners gasped. Even for Amara, this was too cruel. But Ife simply smiled, a strange smile that did not quite reach her eyes, and said nothing. Over the next few days, Amara made Ife's life miserable. She would pour dirty water on floors that Ife had just cleaned. She would hide Ife's cleaning supplies so the old woman would waste time looking for them. She would mock Ife's slow walking and make old age jokes constantly. "Grandmother, did you forget where you put your teeth? Oh wait, you probably forgot you even had teeth." Amara would cackle at her own jokes. But Ife never responded. She just smiled that strange smile and continued walking. One afternoon, Amara was feeling particularly mean. She had gotten in trouble with the supervisor that morning for coming late, and she wanted to take out her anger on someone. She saw Ife slowly mopping the third-floor hallway, and an evil idea came into her mind. Amara filled a bucket with dirty, soapy water from the bathroom. She carried it carefully down the hall, sneaking up behind Ife. Then, with a cruel laugh, she threw the entire bucket of dirty water all over Ife's back. The old woman stumbled forward, soaked from head to toe. Her headscarf fell off, and her grey hair hung in wet strings around her face. The other cleaners who saw this covered their mouths in shock. Amara doubled over with laughter. "Oh, grandmother. You needed a bath anyway. You smell like an old goat." Ife slowly turned around. Water dripped from her clothes and formed a puddle on the floor. She looked at Amara with those deep, penetrating eyes. For the first time since she arrived, she spoke in a voice that was low and steady. "3 times, Ife said quietly. 3 times you have been warned by the universe to change your ways. 3 times you have seen signs and ignored them. Now, there are no more warnings." Amara stopped laughing. Something about the old woman's voice made her skin prickle with goosebumps. "What are you talking about, you crazy old woman?" Ife raised one wrinkled finger and pointed at Amara. "Before the next full moon rises, you will understand what it means to walk in the shoes of those you have hurt. You will feel every pain you have caused, carry every burden you have mocked, and know every tear you have created. Only then will you learn." The lights in the hallway flickered. A cold wind blew through, even though all the windows were closed. The other cleaners stepped back, suddenly afraid. Amara tried to laugh again, but it came out shaky and uncertain. "You do not scare me with your village superstitions, old woman. You are just trying to frighten me because I am better than you." Ife smiled that strange smile again and turned back to her mopping. But as she turned, Amara could have sworn she saw the old woman's eyes flash with golden light. That night, Amara went home to her small apartment and tried to forget about the weird encounter. She convinced herself it was nothing. Just a crazy old woman talking nonsense. But as she lay in bed trying to sleep, she kept seeing those eyes, kept hearing that voice. Before the next full moon rises. The next morning, Amara woke up feeling strange. Her body ached all over, as if she had worked for 20 hours straight. Her head pounded with a headache that would not go away. She looked in the mirror and saw that her eyes had dark circles under them, like she had not slept in days. She went to work anyway, determined not to let an old woman's words affect her. But throughout the day, things kept going wrong. She spilled cleaning solution on her uniform. She dropped a mop bucket on her foot. She slipped on a wet floor and fell hard on her back. The other cleaners watched silently. They had all heard what Ife had said. They wondered if it was beginning. For 3 days, Amara's bad luck continued. She got written up by the supervisor for being slow. She lost her favorite earrings. Her phone stopped working. But still, she refused to apologize to Ife or change her ways. In fact, she became even meaner, as if trying to prove that nothing could touch her. On the 4th day, exactly 1 week before the full moon, something happened that changed everything. Amara was cleaning the 7th floor hallway late in the evening. Most of the office workers had gone home, and the building was quiet and empty. She was mopping near the emergency exit when she heard that familiar tap-tap-tap sound of a wooden cane. She turned around and saw Ife standing at the far end of the hallway. But something was different. The old woman no longer looked bent and weak. She stood perfectly straight, and in the dim hallway light, she seemed to grow taller and taller with each step she took toward Amara. Amara's heart began to pound. She wanted to run, but her feet would not move. She watched in horror as Ife walked closer, a cane making that terrible tap-tap-tap sound that seemed to echo in Amara's skull. When Ife was just a few feet away, she stopped. Her eyes began to glow with that golden light Amara had seen before, but brighter now, much brighter. The air around them grew cold, and Amara could see her own breath forming white clouds in front of her face. "Please," Amara whispered, finding her voice at last. "Please, I am sorry. I will change. I will be better." But Ife shook her head slowly. "The time for easy apologies has passed. You were given chances. You were given warnings. Now you must learn the hard way." Ife raised her wrinkled hand and began to speak in a language Amara had never heard before. The words seemed to fill the hallway, growing louder and louder until they were almost deafening. The lights flickered wildly. The windows rattled in their frames. Papers flew through the air as if caught in an invisible tornado. Amara tried to scream, tried to run, but she could not move. She felt a strange sensation in her chest, like something was being pulled out of her body. The world began to spin and twist around her. Colors bled into each other. The floor seemed to rise up to meet her face. The last thing she saw before everything went black was Ife's face, those golden eyes burning into her soul, and that strange smile growing wider and wider until it seemed to fill Amara's entire vision. When Amara opened her eyes again, everything had changed. Amara tried to sit up, but her body would not cooperate. Everything felt wrong. Her arms were too heavy. Her legs would not respond properly. She blinked several times, trying to clear her vision, and slowly the world came into focus. She was lying on a thin mattress on the floor of a small, cramped room. The walls were made of rough concrete blocks, and the paint was peeling in several places. A single bare light bulb hung from the ceiling, casting harsh shadows everywhere. The air smelled of cooking oil and sweat and too many people living in too small a space. This was not her apartment. Where was she? Amara tried to call out, but the voice that came from her throat was not her own. It was deeper, rougher, older. Panic seized her heart. She looked down at her hands and screamed. They were not her hands. These hands were wrinkled and dark, with swollen knuckles and rough calluses on every finger. These were the hands of someone who had worked hard for many, many years. With trembling fingers, Amara touched her face. The skin felt loose and saggy. She felt deep wrinkles around her eyes and mouth. Her hair, when she touched it, was thin and wiry with gray. No. No, no, no. This could not be happening. Amara struggled to her feet, her body protesting with every movement. Her back ached terribly, and her knees felt like they might give out at any moment. She spotted a small cracked mirror hanging on the wall and stumbled toward it. The face that stared back at her from the mirror was not her face. It was Folek's face. She was inside Folek's body. Amara screamed again, a long wailing sound of pure terror. But even as she screamed, she heard other sounds. Children's voices calling out. "Mama! Mama, are you okay?" The door burst open and 3 children rushed in, 2 boys and a girl, all looking worried. Behind them came 4 more children, ranging from teenagers to small ones barely old enough to walk. 7 children in total. Folek 7 children. "Mama, you are scaring us," the oldest boy said. "Why are you screaming?" Amara backed away from them, still staring at her wrinkled hands. "I am not your mother. I am not Folek. There has been a terrible mistake." The children looked at each other with concern. The oldest girl stepped forward carefully. "Mama, did you have a bad dream? You need to get ready for work. You have both jobs today, remember? If you are late, they will fire you." Both jobs. Amara suddenly remembered. Folek worked as a cleaner at Silverstone Tower during the day, then worked at a restaurant washing dishes at night. She slept only 4 or 5 hours each night. "I cannot go to work," Amara said, her voice shaking. "I need to find Ife. I need to fix this. I need my body back." But the youngest child started crying. "Mama, are you sick? Please do not be sick. We have no money for a doctor." The oldest boy put his hand on Amara's shoulder. His face was serious beyond his years. "Mama, I know you are tired. We are all tired. But we need you to work. We have not eaten since yesterday morning. Please, Mama." Amara looked at their faces. All 7 children staring at her with hungry eyes and worried expressions. She felt Folek's body, weak and exhausted, barely able to stand. And suddenly she understood. This was what Folek dealt with every single day. This was the life Amara had mocked. "I will go," Amara whispered, tears streaming down her wrinkled cheeks. "I will go to work." The journey to Silverstone Tower was a nightmare. Amara had to take 3 different buses because Folek could not afford a taxi. Her back ached the entire time. People pushed and shoved, and with Folek's elderly body, Amara could barely keep her balance. By the time she arrived at the building, she was already exhausted, and the workday had not even begun. In the cleaning staff locker room, Amara saw herself. Her real body, her real face, moving and talking. But it was not her inside. She could tell by the way her body moved, gentle and kind, greeting everyone with warmth. Ife was inside Amara's body. "Good morning, Folek," Ife said with Amara's voice, Amara's smile. "How are you feeling today?" Amara wanted to scream, to attack, to demand her body back. But Folek's old body was too weak and tired. "Please," she begged quietly. "Please give me my body back. I have learned my lesson." Ife smiled sadly. "You have only just begun to learn. 1 day down, 6 more to go. 7 days for 7 people you have hurt. Today you are Folek. Tomorrow you will be someone else. 7 days. Amara felt her heart sink. "I cannot survive 7 days like this." "Folek survives every day," Ife said softly. "And she does it with grace and kindness, even when people like you make it harder." The supervisor walked in, clapping his hands. "Everyone to your stations. We have a lot of work today. Folek, you are moving too slow. Hurry up." Amara wanted to argue, to say it was unfair, but she remembered how many times she had said those exact words to Folek. Now she understood how they felt like knives cutting into your dignity. The workday was the hardest physical labor Amara had ever experienced. Every time she bent down to scrub a floor, her back screamed in pain. Every time she lifted a bucket, her arms trembled with weakness. And all day long, she watched Ife in her body, working efficiently and treating everyone with kindness. During lunch break, Amara collapsed into a chair, completely exhausted. She had only worked half a day, and she still had the restaurant job tonight. How did Folek do this every single day? She was so tired that her eyes began to close. Just for a moment, she thought. Just a quick rest. Look at Folek sleeping like a lazy goat. Amara's eyes snapped open. Someone was mocking her, using the exact words she had used so many times. She looked up and saw a young cleaning woman named Ngozi laughing at her. "If you cannot work properly, go back to your village," Ngozi added, and the other cleaners looked away uncomfortably. Amara felt tears spring to her eyes. The humiliation burned like fire. This was what she had done to Folek. This was the pain she had caused. She wanted to defend herself, to say something back, but she was too tired and too ashamed. The rest of the day passed in a blur of pain and exhaustion. When her shift at Silverstone Tower finally ended, Amara had to go directly to the restaurant for her second job. There, she washed dishes in scalding hot water until her hands were red and raw. She did not get home until midnight. The children were already asleep, crowded together on the floor because there were not enough beds. Amara looked at their peaceful faces and felt her heart break. This was Folek's life. Work and struggle and sacrifice, every single day, for these children she loved. Amara lay down on the thin mattress and closed her eyes. Her entire body was one giant ache. She had never been so tired in her life. And she had 6 more days of this. 6 more people whose lives she would experience. She thought of Ife's words. 7 days for 7 people you have hurt. Sleep took her quickly, pulling her down into darkness. When Amara woke up the next morning, she knew immediately that something had changed again. Her body felt different. Lighter in some ways, but with a different kind of pain. She opened her eyes and found herself in another unfamiliar room. This one was even smaller than Folek's, barely large enough for a bed and a small table. On the wall was a poster of a university, and on the table were textbooks and notebooks covered in careful handwriting. Amara sat up and looked down at herself. She was wearing men's clothes. Her hands were young and strong, but when she tried to stand, her left leg would not work properly. She stumbled and nearly fell, catching herself on the wall. She was in Choku's body now. The young man with the limb that she had mocked every single day. Amara limped to a mirror and saw Choku's face staring back at her. Handsome and young, with kind eyes that showed determination despite hardship. She tried to walk normally, but the leg would not cooperate. Each step required concentration and effort. Each step brought stares from others who did not understand. A note was taped to the mirror in handwriting she recognized as Ife's. Day 2 of 7. Walk the path you mocked. Amara crumpled the note in her fist. She had to get through this. Only 6 more days. She could survive 6 more days. She got ready for work, and the simple act of putting on socks and shoes with the bad leg took 3 times as long as normal. Everything was harder. Everything required more effort. At Silverstone Tower, she experienced the stares and whispers. She heard people wondering why the cleaning company hired someone who could not walk properly. She felt the frustration of moving slower than everyone else, no matter how hard she tried. And worst of all, she heard Ngozi again, who seemed to have inherited Amara's cruel tongue. Hurry up, Choku. Why do you walk like a broken bicycle? The floors will not clean themselves. The words hit Amara like physical blows. She had said those exact words, in that exact mocking tone, dozens of times. Now she understood. Choku's limp was not laziness or clumsiness. It was a real physical limitation that he struggled with every day while also dealing with people's judgment and cruelty. During lunch break, Amara sat alone and looked at Choku's notebooks. They were filled with math problems and science notes. He was teaching himself, studying every free moment, saving every spare penny for university. He had dreams and ambitions, and he was working so hard despite his disability. She had tried to crush those dreams with her mockery. She had tried to make him feel worthless. The shame was overwhelming. The day passed with painful slowness. By evening, Amara's hip and knee were screaming from the unusual walking pattern. She understood now that Choku lived with this pain every single day, and still he showed up with a smile and worked hard without complaining. That night, back in Choku's small room, Amara cried. Real tears of genuine remorse. She had been so cruel, so thoughtlessly cruel, to people who were already struggling with challenges she could never imagine. She fell asleep with tears still wet on her cheeks. Day 3 brought a new body, a new life, a new lesson. Amara woke up wearing a headscarf and realized she was now Zainab. She experienced the quiet strength of faith, the discipline of prayer 5 times a day, and the frustration of having a work schedule that showed no respect for her religious practices. She felt what it was like when Ngozi deliberately scheduled her to work during prayer times, then reported her for disappearing. She understood the impossible choice between keeping her job and honoring her faith. She experienced the whispers and assumptions people made about her because of her headscarf. Day 4, she woke up as Adibeo, the janitor who stuttered when he spoke. She felt the burning humiliation of having people mock the way words caught in her throat. She experienced how people assumed she was stupid just because she could not speak smoothly. She remembered all the times she had mimicked his stutter to make other people laugh. Day 5, she became Kayamika, a single mother who brought her baby to work because she had no one to watch him. She felt the desperate juggling act of trying to clean floors while keeping an infant quiet and happy. She experienced the supervisor's anger, the complaints from office workers, the impossible situation of choosing between her child and her job. Day 6, she was Obina, a man who could not read very well but was an incredibly hard worker. She felt the shame of hiding this limitation, the fear of being discovered, the extra effort required to do simple tasks that others took for granted. She remembered how she had left mocking notes in places where she knew Obina would struggle to read them. Each day was harder than the last. Each body brought new pain, new struggles, new understanding. Amara experienced poverty, disability, discrimination, and hardship in ways she had never imagined. And through it all, she watched Ife in her body, treating everyone with the kindness and respect that Amara had never shown. On the 7th and final morning, Amara woke up in a body she did not recognize at first. She was in a clean but simple room. Her body felt young and healthy, but there was a deep sadness in her chest that she could not explain. She looked in the mirror and saw the face of Taiwo, a young cleaner who had started working at Silverstone Tower just 3 months ago. Amara had been particularly cruel to Taiwo because the girl was pretty and some of the male workers paid attention to her. Amara went through Taiwo's morning routine, and slowly she discovered the girl's secret. In a drawer, hidden under clothes, she found hospital bills. Cancer treatment bills for Taiwo's younger brother. That was why Taiwo had taken the cleaning job despite having a university degree. That was why she worked overtime whenever possible. She was trying to save her brother's life. And Amara had made her life hell. She had spread rumors about Taiwo. She had stolen her tips. She had tried to get her fired multiple times out of pure jealousy. The weight of this knowledge crushed Amara. She sat on the floor of Taiwo's room and sobbed. 7 days, 7 people, 7 lives full of struggle and pain that she had made worse with her cruelty. That evening, as her shift ended, Ife appeared before her. Still in Amara's body, still wearing that knowing smile. "Your 7 days are complete," Ife said. "You have walked in the shoes of those you hurt. You have felt their pain, carried their burdens, known their tears. Have you learned?" "Yes," Amara whispered, still in Taiwo's body. "Yes, I have learned. I was cruel and thoughtless and horrible. I treated people like they were nothing when they were struggling with more than I could ever imagine. Please, I am truly sorry. I will change. I promise I will change." Ife studied her for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "We shall see if your words match your heart." The world began to spin again. Colors bled together. The floor rose up to meet Amara's face. And then darkness. When Amara opened her eyes, she was lying on the floor of the 7th floor hallway at Silverstone Tower. The same spot where she had collapsed 7 days ago. She was back in her own body. She sat up slowly, checking her hands, her legs, her face. Everything was back to normal. But she was not the same person who had fallen unconscious 7 days ago. Everything had changed. Amara stood up on shaking legs and looked around. The hallway was empty and quiet. It was evening, just like before. Had only a moment passed in real time? Or had 7 days actually gone by? She found her way to the locker room. The other cleaners were there, getting ready to go home. When they saw her, they all stopped and stared. Folek looked at her with wary eyes. Choku stepped back, as if expecting an insult. Zainab clutched her bag protectively. They all remembered how she had treated them. Amara's eyes filled with tears. She walked to Folek first and dropped to her knees. "I am so sorry," she said, her voice breaking. I am so sorry for every cruel word, every mocking laugh, every time I made your hard life harder. You are strong and brave and good, and I was blind and cruel. Please forgive me. Folek's eyes widened in shock. The other cleaners looked at each other, confused. Amara went to each person in turn. To Choku, she apologized for mocking his disability and not seeing his courage and determination. To Zainab, she apologized for disrespecting her faith and making her choose between her job and her prayers. To every single person she had hurt, she offered genuine, tearful apologies. They stared at her in disbelief. This could not be the same Amara who had tormented them for 2 years. What happened to you? Folek finally asked. Why are you different? Amara wiped her tears. I learned what it means to walk in someone else's shoes. And I learned that I never want to cause pain like that again. Over the following weeks, Amara proved her words were true. She became the kindest person on the cleaning staff. She helped Folek with the heavy lifting and often brought food for her children. She adjusted the schedule so Zainab could pray. She encouraged Choku and helped him study during breaks. She treated everyone with respect and dignity. The other cleaners slowly began to trust her. They saw that her change was real and lasting. One morning, exactly 1 month after her 7-day journey, Amara arrived at work early. In the 7th floor hallway, she found Ife waiting for her. The old woman looked exactly as she had before, bent over her cane, with those deep knowing eyes. You have done well, Ife said quietly. You learned your lesson and kept your promise. The curse is lifted completely. It was not a curse, Amara said softly. It was a gift. A terrible, painful gift, but a gift nonetheless. You showed me the truth about myself and gave me a chance to change. Thank you. Ife smiled, a real smile this time that reached her eyes. Not many people would see it that way. You have a good heart, Amara. You just needed to learn how to use it. Are you really a grandmother? Amara asked. Or are you something else? Ife's eyes twinkled with ancient wisdom. I am what I need to be. I go where I am needed. And now my work here is done. She turned to walk away, her cane making that familiar tap 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 sound. Wait. Amara called out. Will I see you again? Ife looked back over her shoulder. If you stay on this path, you will not need to. But if you ever forget these lessons, if you ever return to cruelty and mockery, I will know. And I will return. Then she walked down the hallway, and as she walked, she seemed to fade like morning mist. By the time she reached the end of the hallway, she had vanished completely, as if she had never been there at all. Amara stood alone in the empty hallway, her hand over her heart. She would never forget. She would never forget the pain of those 7 days, the struggles of the 7 people, the lessons learned in 7 different bodies. She went to work with a light heart and a changed spirit, ready to be the person she should have been all along. And in the years that followed, whenever she saw someone being cruel or thoughtless to others, she would gently pull them aside and tell them a story about a root cleaner who learned her lesson the hard way. Some listened. Some did not. But Amara never stopped trying to spread the wisdom she had gained, hoping to save others from needing to learn the same painful lesson she had learned. And sometimes, late at night in the empty hallways of Silverstone Tower, workers would hear the tap-tap-tap sound of a wooden cane echoing through the building. They would look around but see no one. And they would remember to be kind, just in case the mysterious Grandmother Ife was still watching, still waiting, still ready to teach those who refused to learn.